Hey, what's up everybody, this is Rick501 and today I wanted to show you guys a build I made for Amara for Borderlands 3, and this build is going to be focused on melee damage, and it also has tanky talents mixed in so you don't die while punching everybody in the face. Now I think this is going to be a super strong build when the game comes out, possibly one of the meta builds for a couple different reasons, but before that, take into consideration that Borderlands 3 is not out yet. So we don't exactly know if there's going to be any other super overpowered items that make this build not as good because other builds are so much better or anything like that. Also, if you don't want to watch this entire video, or if you just want a link to this build to be able to change it up or just have the build so it's easy to put in all of the talents when the game actually comes out, I'll put a link to the build in the description. So like I said, this video is going to be long, and if you don't want to watch it, you can just check that out, get the link and change up anything you want with that link. Now the two reasons I think this build is going to be super strong is because, first off, there's so many talents for Amara that just help with this build that just make it ridiculously strong. And then, if you don't know, mods in Borderlands 3, so I'm pretty sure class mods, can have capstone skill increases. So basically, in every other Borderlands, you could only increase the talents that are like 3 out of 3, 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5, stuff like that. And you could get it like 6 out of 5, stuff like that. But now there's ones that actually increase the capstone skills or talents, which are 1 out of 1. And you can get more than you can get, say, 2 out of 1. So say this one, Illuminated Fist. Amara gains increased melee damage, and her melee damage is converted to her action skill element. 75% melee damage increase. Getting another point on top of that is going to be a ridiculous damage increase, and that's just one of the capstones. There's definitely other ones with this build that you could get massive damage increases, like especially the Blitz, which is the end one, but we'll go over that later. So first I want to go over the skills and why I'm using them. Now before that, we should actually go over that Amara's action skill actually is based on an element. Now it starts as shock, but with this skill builder, which is the official one, I don't know actually how to take it back to shock, because shock doesn't show up in any of the skill trees, but I'm pretty sure you could deactivate, because these ones at the sides are free, which you can actually change to different ones. I'm pretty sure if you just deactivate the one you have, it should take it back to shock when in game, but I don't think you could do it in this. But she starts with shock. You can get incinerary if you unlock this row right here of the Fist of Elements skill tree. So this is incinerary. Then there's corrosive by unlocking this row in the brawl skill tree, and that's the only 3 you can get. So shock, corrosive, and incinerary. But you can change them just how you change other skills. I'm not exactly certain if you can change these just while you're out playing, if you have to go back to like the skill changer, or I forget exactly what the station's called, but you will be able to change between those 3. And with one of the talents, your melee damage does focus on that element, and actually your action skill is based on the element, so there is some stuff tied to those, so you take that in consideration. Now the ability I'm using is actually Deliverance. Amara sends forward an actual projection of herself, dealing damage to everything in its path. Whenever Amara's actual projection damages an enemy or object, it releases homing elements or projectiles that trigger her action skill elemental effect on enemies. So if you have Incinerary, it will catch everything on fire that those projectiles hit. Now it has a 28-second cooldown, baseline, 86 damage, and 3 projectiles per enemy hits, so it can technically hit 3 different other enemies to catch them on fire. Now why I want to use this, because I wanted a pretty high damage skill. There was a lower cooldown one. There are other higher damage ones, but are much higher cooldown, like say this 47-second cooldown, pretty high, even though it does a lot more damage. So I wanted the lowest cooldown with some decent damage, because you can get lower cooldowns with, say, Phase Grasp, but it doesn't really do like damage. It locks them in place baseline. And the reason for that is because the action skill, or the action skill effect or augment, whatever, is this, and it basically just gives 30% of skill damage dealt as lifesteal can heal you or a nearby ally, which is also pretty good for team play. But that'll be a ton of healing. Now, I'm not exactly certain if the projectiles affect that healing or not. If they do, it's insane. If they don't, it's still pretty good healing. And also, there are other action skills or other talents that affect using your action skill and stuff. So that is the reason that I chose that action skill. So first off, we have Root to Rise, which is just 5 out of 5, 40% health increase. Just more health, a lot of health actually, so you don't die while running around hitting stuff. This also helps because we have multiple health regen things in the skills. And this one is Clarity. Amara constantly regenerates health. The lower her health, the more powerful the regeneration. After using an action skill, the bonus is doubled for a few seconds. So the bonus is doubled for 5 seconds after the action skill, and it's up to 5% missing health per second. So that you need to be pretty low to get that 5% total. But say if you're even half, I don't exactly know how it's going to be, but half you're still regenerating, a few percent health per second. So overall, you're always going to be getting good life regen. And anytime you use an action skill, say if you're low and use this action skill just with this, you're going to be getting 10 health per second for 5 seconds until it, halves again, which is pretty crazy in itself. So it's some pretty good sustain just to have, just passive basically. Then we have Helping Hands. For a few seconds after using her action skill, Amar's arms remain active and grant her damage reduction. 40% damage reduction for 15 seconds. Now, take into consideration that your cooldown of your action skill is baseline only 28 seconds. You get 40% damage reduction for 15 seconds of that. There's only, 13 seconds if I'm doing, or more than 13 seconds, but there's only, 18 seconds? I have no idea what kind of math I'm doing. There's a decent amount of time. It's early. There's a good amount of, not a lot of time that you don't have this active. If you're using your active skill on cooldown, you actually have this up more than you don't have it up. 40% damage reduction, pretty crazy. So it's massively more tanky. Okay, for the next talent, we have Samsara. Whenever Amara deals damage to an enemy with her action skill, she gains a stack of Samsara. For every stack, she gains increased gun damage and health regen for a few seconds. Stack decay after a few seconds. Now, this gives 5% weapon damage and 5% max health per second per stack at a max of 5 stacks. Now, this doesn't really make sense what it's saying because it says it lasts for a few seconds. Stacks decay after a few seconds, but it says at the bottom the duration is 20 seconds. So I'm not exactly certain how this is going to work. It doesn't really make sense to me between those two, but overall it's still going to be a super tanky addition. Even if it was just 5 or 10% health per second for a few seconds after using an action skill, it'd still be pretty good. Gun damage is going to be not super used, but you'll still be using your gun some, so it'll still be used. But overall, just another tanky talent. Next, we have Mindfulness. Whenever Amara takes damage, she gains a stack of Mindfulness. For every stack of Mindfulness, Amara gains improved shield regeneration delay and movement speed. Stacks decay after a few seconds. So shield regeneration delay is minus 23% per stack. Movement speed is 4.2% per stack. 25% max stacks. And stacks decay after a few seconds, and the duration is 5 seconds. So I assume these are that once you get a stack, even if you get another stack on top of that, the first stack will still decay after its duration, which is what I'm assuming. But this is 25 stacks, so 4.2% movement speed per stack. That is 80+% movement speed if you have max stacks. If you're getting hit by something super fast, you'll be getting that. And then the shield regeneration delay, making your shield come back faster, is also pretty crazy of a percentage. So this is pretty good. And what I said about the decay, I think that'd have to be true with how strong this actually is. So more tanky because your shield's going to regen faster, but also movement speed, just running around quicker, is always good. for, melee damage. Amara gains increased melee damage. Additionally, for a few seconds after using her action skill, Amara gains increased melee range. So she gets melee damage increased 100%, which is ridiculous. And then the duration is 20 seconds, but the duration is only for melee range, 75%, which is also pretty crazy. I'm wondering if this is actually going to like dash her to the target, or if she's actually just going to punch like in front of the screen like normally, and then something like 10 feet away is just going to die. That'd be kind of funny. But this is easily probably one of the strongest capstone talents. So if you can get an increase of this, it's going to be pretty crazy. So next we have one with nature. Amara gains increased max health and elemental damage resistance to her action skill element. So I'm mainly 25% max health, another massive health increase. So overall, how much max health have we gotten? Just 65%. Then elemental damage reduction, 40%. Now that is to whatever her action skill element is. So we have Incin right now, so 40% damage reduction to Incinerary. Pretty decent. Just another tanky skill. Whenever an enemy damages Amara, she automatically throws an energy orb back at them, dealing action skill elemental damage. This has a short cooldown, so 8 seconds. So she's just throwing out these orbs, just extra damage. This is just mainly because we have extra skills left over, and it's just completely free damage. And free damage is always good. It's also a capstone, so it's 1 out of 1. I'm pretty strong for 1 talent. So at the end, we have Blitz, which makes this melee build pretty crazy. Melee Override. Press V while aiming at an enemy to make Amara dash a short distance forward and perform a special melee strike dealing elemental melee damage. If Blitz melee attack kills an enemy, Blitz's cooldown is immediately reset. Blitz only has an 8-second cooldown, and it gives 100% melee damage increase. Now, since it says melee override, I'm wondering if you just lose your melee ability and get this instead. I'm not exactly certain on this. It sounds like that now if you don't kill something with your melee ability, that you're going to have an 8-second cooldown before you can melee again. So I'm not exactly certain. If it's like that, it's still really good. If this is basically just another ability you can use with your melee, kind of a different way to use melee, it's ridiculously strong. I'm assuming it's changing your melee into this, which if you're just changing your melee into this, this is probably going to be so strong because of all the percentages you get. Now this says it's dealing elemental melee damage, which I'd assume it's just based off what element you're using. But you're getting 100% melee damage right there, 100% melee damage right there. And then there's other talents that we're going to be going to that give a bunch of more melee damage. So you're going to be hitting so ridiculously hard. Also, I forgot this one, Jab Cross. Whenever Amara deals melee damage to an enemy, she gains increased action skill damage and increased gun damage for a few seconds. Now I could have went more into this. You can actually go more into this. It's pretty good because of the action skill damage, and the duration, but I didn't go more into this. I didn't think I needed it. I think other stuff was better, but we do have the life regen that I talked about before, or the basically lifesteal off our action skill damage. So if you went more into this, you would be a bit more focused on, I guess, your action skill damage based off this because it hits so hard. But I still want 2 points into it, so we still get 30% damage increase. You can definitely remove some stuff if you want to. That's not sole parts of the build, and go more into that if you would like. It's still going to be viable and pretty good. So next we have the mythical assault tree. Killing an enemy grants Amara a stack of rush. Activating her action skill consumes all rush stacks. This is also a reason I wanted lower cooldown skill ability with all the rush stacks. For every stack of rush consumed, Amara gains action skill damage, or Amara's action skill damage is temporarily increased. Now this is the best one we could get out of these. Since we have that life skill, max rush stacks is 10, 4.5% per stack consumed, and duration is 20 seconds, so a bunch of extra action skill damage increase, which helps us with with this, so we, lifesteal more. This is just the best one that we could get out of these, in my opinion, but it's still pretty good because we get the life steal. Then we have Amara gains increased action skill cooldown rate, so 25%. So that's good because we're getting 25% lower cooldown on our action skill, which is really good, especially for all the stuff that our action skill helps with. It gives more life steal. It gives us, we have rush stacks to activate off it. We have some other stuff to activate off our action skill. So overall, really, really good. Then we have Ascendant, which is all action skill augments gain increased effect. So basically what this does for us is 20% more soul sap lifesteal. So overall, our action skill is 50% of skill damage dealt as lifesteal, which is really, really good. We're healing a ton off of that. So next we have Anima, which is Amara's status effects deal increased damage over time and have increased duration. Her action skill status effects deal further increased damage. So basically we just have 40% action skill status effect damage, status effect damage plus 20%, and status effect duration 100%. And that's super good, especially with this, because it basically, when you hit stuff with your action skill, it sends out those projectiles that put your effect on targets, which then lasts longer, does more damage. Overall, a lot more damage, especially since our punches are also going to be damage from our status effect, because it's going to do that elemental damage. Then we have Illuminated Fist. Amara gains increased melee damage, and her melee damage is converted to her action skill element. So just all of her melees are now going to be whatever element she's using, and 75% more melee damage. We're almost at 300% melee damage increase from all of our talents, just from talents. Absolutely ridiculous. That is the entire build. So check the link in the description for the actual link to the build if you want to check this out. Overall, I think it's going to be a really good, really strong build. I think it should be really fun. It should also be really strong if there's anything that you need one of your specific elements for, even though you're going to have a specific element, which is why I think your guns are going to come in handy. Probably Incinerary for me is probably going to be the best, unless you're specifically facing like a bunch of robots or something. I think it's going to be the best because then you can just have a, like a shock weapon, get their shields down, then kill them with the Incinerary melee punches, which then kill stuff, so your blitz resets. All super good stuff. So subscribe if you want to see more Borderlands 3 content. I'm probably going to be doing tons of videos, pretty much all focused on Borderlands 3. Leave a comment down below what you think about this build, how hyped you are for Borderlands 3. Leave a like if you liked the video, and thanks for watching.